The obelisk cracks the moment my power touches it. Not glows, not hums, cracks. A jagged black line splitting straight down the center of a crystal that has measured every student in this academy for the last 300 years without a single failure. The entire evaluation hall goes silent. 400 students, 12 instructors, all staring at a slab of ancient stone that just broke because it tried to read me. Someone behind me whispers, "That's not possible." It gets worse. The crack spreads. Light starts leaking out of it, not gold like it's supposed to, but a deep, wrong kind of black, like the obelisk is bleeding ink. The proctor standing at the podium, a man who has ranked hunters for 2 decades without blinking, takes a full step backward. His hand is shaking, and that's when the obelisk shatters completely. Not cracks, shatters. Pieces of 300-year-old enchanted stone rain down across the front of the hall, and somewhere in the chaos, a single word appears burned into the air above where the crystal used to be, floating there like it's mocking everyone in the room. Unmeasurable. Not S-rank, not SSS-rank. Unmeasurable. A ranking that has never once appeared in the history of this school, because the entire point of the obelisk was that nothing could go past SSS. That was supposed to be the ceiling, the absolute limit of human potential, carved in stone, literally. I just broke the ceiling by standing near it. 60 seconds ago, I was the branch family reject nobody wanted to stand next to in line. Now I'm the reason 400 people are backing away from me like I'm a bomb that forgot to go off yet. Great. Just great. Let me back up because none of this makes sense without a little context, and I promise the context is almost as insane as what just happened to that obelisk. My name is Rowan Ashgrave, and until about a minute ago, I was the biggest joke at Virelia Academy of Ranked Descendants. Not because I was weak, because everyone assumed I was weak, and assumptions like that have a way of becoming permanent labels once enough rich, powerful people repeat them enough times. Here's the part I need you to understand before anything else makes sense. In this world, your rank isn't just a number. It's your entire identity. It decides which noble houses will marry into your family, which hunting parties will accept you, which dorms you're allowed to sleep in, and whether teachers bother learning your name. Rank F means your furniture. Rank SSS means kingdoms fight over you before you turn 18. I was supposed to be rank F, maybe E if the obelisk was feeling generous. That's what 7 years of testing told everyone. Every single evaluation since I was 10 years old came back the same way. Unreadable interference. Try again next year. The instructors stopped bothering to explain it after a while. They just wrote rank unranked on my file and moved on to the next kid, the one who actually mattered. My own father barely looked at the reports. Lord Rowan Ashgrave is one of the strongest SSS rank hunters alive, a man who cleared the Hollow Spire dungeon solo when he was 22, a man whose name makes veteran monsters retreat without a fight, and his own son couldn't even register on a measuring stone. You can imagine how that went over at family dinners, which is why there weren't many family dinners. My half-brother Cassian never let me forget it either. Cassian is everything I'm supposedly not. Golden hair, effortless SSS ranked talent, first in every class since he could walk. The legitimate heir. The one born to my father's actual wife, while I was the son of a woman my father barely mentions. A branch family maid named Lyra, who died when I was 7 and left me exactly nothing except a small iron pendant I've worn every single day since, because it's the only thing of hers I have left. Cassian used to call me the family's unpaid debt. Said it with a smile, right in front of people, like it was a compliment. I used to just take it. What was I supposed to do, fight back? Against someone who could snap a training dummy in half with one spell? So for 7 years, I smiled, said nothing, and let everyone believe I was exactly what the obelisk told them I was. Nothing. I got good at it, actually. Being nothing. There's a strange kind of skill in learning how to shrink yourself small enough that nobody bothers aiming insults at you anymore. How to walk through a crowded hallway without making eye contact. How to sit in the back of every classroom and answer every question wrong on purpose so no teacher ever expects anything from you again. I told myself it didn't hurt anymore. That was a lie I got very good at telling too. Until today. Today was supposed to be the standard third-year reevaluation. Every student who failed to register a rank gets one more shot before the academy quietly expels them for resource inefficiency, which is a polite way of saying, you're taking up a bed that could go to someone who actually matters. This was my last chance. Fail today, and I'm gone by tomorrow morning, shipped back to a branch estate nobody visits, forgotten completely. I almost didn't even bother trying. But then I thought about my mother, about the way she used to look at me right before she died, like she knew something the rest of the world didn't, like she was waiting for something. So I stepped up to the obelisk one more time, and I broke it. The proctor is the first one to find his voice again. Step back from the artifact, he says, and his voice is doing that thing where someone tries to sound calm while their hands are shaking. Everyone clear the hall, now. Nobody moves at first. They're all still staring at the word floating in the air. Unmeasurable. A ranking with no precedent, no category, no box to put me in. Then Cassian starts laughing. This has to be a malfunction, he says, loud enough for the whole hall to hear, stepping forward with that same golden confidence he's had since birth. The obelisk is ancient. It probably just broke on its own. There's no way the unranked reject suddenly outclasses actual talent. A few students laugh along with him. Nervous laughter, the kind that comes from people who want an excuse to stop being scared. I don't say anything. I'm still staring at the word floating above the wreckage of 300 years of academy history. And honestly, I don't know if he's right or wrong. All I know is that when I stepped up to that stone, something inside my chest woke up. Something that's been sleeping since I was 7 years old, since the day my mother died and told me, with her very last breath, 4 words I never understood until this exact second. Don't let them see. At the time, I thought she was talking about grief. I thought she meant don't cry in front of strangers, don't show weakness, that kind of thing. I was wrong. She wasn't talking about grief at all. The proctor kneels down next to the shattered obelisk, and when he picks up one of the larger pieces, his face goes pale in a way that has nothing to do with fear of me and everything to do with recognizing something. He turns the shard over in his hands, and I catch a glimpse of a symbol carved into the stone underneath the crack. A symbol I've never seen before, old and jagged, glowing faintly with that same wrong black light. This seal, the proctor whispers. This isn't academy craftsmanship. This is a suppression seal, a binding rune. The word hits the hall like a second explosion. Are you saying, one of the senior instructors says slowly, stepping closer, that the obelisk wasn't malfunctioning? It was suppressing him this entire time. Suddenly, 7 years of failed evaluations make a horrifying kind of sense. I wasn't unranked because I had no power. I was unranked because something or someone had been actively hiding my power for as long as anyone had been trying to measure it. Every test I ever failed wasn't a failure at all. It was a lock holding the door shut, and today, for whatever reason, that lock finally broke. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. 7 years of being called a waste of a bloodline. 7 years of watching Cassian collect trophies while I collected pity looks from teachers who didn't even bother hiding their disappointment. 7 years, and it turns out none of it was ever real. Somebody sealed me on purpose. I run through it again in my head because I need to hear it a second time before it fully lands. 7 years ago, right around the time my mother died, somebody with enough skill to fool an entire academy full of trained instructors reached into a grieving 7-year-old and locked something away inside him, then kept coming back year after year to make sure the lock never wore thin enough to break on its own. That's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. That's a decision, made deliberately, made repeatedly, by someone who had both the power and the access to pull it off without anyone noticing for the better part of a decade, which narrows the list of suspects down to almost nobody. And the almost nobody it narrows down to is exactly why my stomach feels like it's dropped through the floor. And I have exactly one guess about who had the power, the access, and the reason to do something like that to a 7-year-old child right around the time his mother died. The proctor straightens up, still holding the broken shard, and looks at me with an expression I've genuinely never seen directed at me before in my entire life. Not pity, not dismissal, something closer to fear mixed with awe, the kind of look people give something they don't understand yet but already know is dangerous. "Rowan Ashgrave," he says, and my name has never sounded so heavy coming out of someone's mouth. "I need you to come with me, immediately." Cassian's smile is gone completely now. He's staring at me like he's trying to solve a puzzle that just changed all its own rules. For 7 years, he's been the golden heir standing next to the family embarrassment. That contrast was the entire foundation of his identity, the thing that made him feel secure every single day. And now the foundation just cracked wide open, right along with 300 years of Academy history. "This changes nothing," he says, but his voice doesn't have the same confidence it had 30 seconds ago. "Whatever glitch just happened, you're still you." He's wrong about that too, but I don't correct him yet. I don't correct him because I don't fully understand what just happened myself, and honestly, some small, cautious part of me is more afraid of what I might be than excited about it. The seal was there for a reason. Somebody wanted whatever is inside me to stay hidden. And seals like that don't usually get put on children for good reasons. I follow the proctor out of the evaluation hall, past 400 students who spent 7 years looking through me and are now looking at me like I might be the most dangerous person in the building, and I catch one more face in the crowd before the doors close behind me. Ren Solari. The Academy's current top-ranked student, an SSS-ranked prodigy from one of the oldest hunting families in the kingdom, someone who has spoken exactly 4 words to me in 3 years of overlapping classes. All 4 of them, some version of, "Move, you're in the way." She's not laughing like the others. She's not looking at me with fear either. She's looking at me like she's trying to remember where she's seen that black light before. And that look is going to matter a lot more than I realize right now. For a second, just one, I let myself imagine what it would be like if she actually cared. Then I remind myself that Ren Solari has spoken exactly 4 words to me in 3 years, and none of them were kind. So whatever that look means, it's probably not sympathy. Probably. I file it away anyway, because right now I don't have the luxury of ignoring anything. Not after what just happened to a piece of stone that's supposed to be unbreakable. The proctor leads me down a corridor I've never been allowed into before, past doors marked with seals I don't recognize, until we reach a private office at the end of the hall. Inside, waiting for us, already seated behind a desk covered in old Academy records, is Instructor Vale Corinth, the head of the evaluation department, and, according to rumors I've heard exactly once in 3 years, the only person on staff who was actually close friends with my mother. She doesn't look surprised to see me. She looks like she's been waiting 7 years for this exact moment. "Sit down, Rowan," she says quietly. "There's a lot you were never allowed to know." My whole body goes cold. "Allowed," I repeat. Who decided I wasn't allowed to know things about myself? Instructor Corinth exchanges a glance with the proctor, the kind of glance adults share right before they tell you something that's going to break your entire understanding of your own life. "Your mother," she says slowly, "wasn't just a branch family maid, Rowan. That was a story your father needed the world to believe, for her safety and for yours. Lyra was a sealed-class hunter from the old bloodline, one of the last of her kind, and the power she carried, was considered so dangerous that an entire council once voted on whether to have her eliminated before it could pass to a child. The room goes very quiet. They voted no, she continues, on one condition, that if she ever had a child, the power would be bound the moment it began to awaken, and kept bound for as long as possible. I stare at her. So the seal on the obelisk, the one that broke today, was placed on you, she finishes, 7 years ago, the same week your mother died. Something in my chest goes tight and cold at the same time. Who placed it? Instructor Corinth hesitates just long enough for me to already know the answer before she says it out loud. Your father authorized it, she says. I don't believe he did it out of cruelty. I believe he did it because he was terrified of what would happen to you, and to this entire kingdom, if that power woke up before you were ready for it. I sit there for a long moment, turning that over. 7 years of being called a disappointment, of watching Cassian shine while I disappeared into the background, of believing every single dismissive look from my own father meant exactly what it seemed to mean. And the whole time, it wasn't disappointment at all. It was fear. Fear of me. Fear of what my mother gave me before she died. Why did it break today? I ask. Why now, after 7 years of holding? The proctor is the one who answers this time, still turning that broken shard of the obelisk over in his hands, like he's afraid it might crack further just from being touched. Suppression seals aren't permanent, Rowan. They're built to hold back power that grows over time. Eventually, the pressure exceeds the containment. We believe your seal was never meant to last this long in the first place. Someone extended it artificially, more than once, over the years. Someone kept renewing it, I say slowly, which means someone has been actively watching me this whole time, making sure it never broke on its own. Instructor Corinth's expression tightens. Yes. I let that sit for a second because it deserves to. 7 years. Someone stood in the shadows for 7 entire years, quietly reaching into my life over and over again, making sure a door stayed locked without ever once explaining to me why the door existed in the first place. 7 years of watching me get humiliated in every class, watching me flinch every time a teacher called roll and skipped my name for the advanced sections, watching me eat lunch alone because nobody wants to be seen next to the unranked reject. All of it. Watched, maintained, managed. Like I was a problem to be administrated instead of a person who deserved to know what was happening to his own body. You said someone extended it artificially, I say slowly, testing the words in my mouth like they might bite. More than once. That means whoever did this had to keep coming back. Had to keep checking. Had to keep deciding every single time that I still wasn't allowed to know. Instructor Corinth doesn't flinch away from that, and I respect her a little for it. Yes, she says again, quieter this time. I won't pretend that's not a monstrous thing to have done to a child, Rowan, even with good intentions behind it. Intentions don't erase 7 years. And now it's broken anyway. Now it's broken anyway, she confirms, which means 2 things are true at the same time, Rowan, and you need to hear both of them clearly. The first is that whatever power your mother carried, whatever the old bloodline actually is, it's awake inside you right now, for the first time in 7 years, with no seal left to hold it back. And the second thing, I say, the second thing, she says, is that whoever has been maintaining that seal for the past 7 years is going to notice it broke, probably within hours. And depending on who that person actually is, that might be the most dangerous part of everything that just happened today. As if the universe wanted to prove her right immediately, the office door slams open without anyone touching it, and a gust of freezing wind rolls through the room, extinguishing every candle at once. Standing in the doorway, wrapped in a dark hooded cloak that I do not recognize, is a figure who wasn't there a second ago, and definitely shouldn't have been able to walk through a locked, warded academy office without triggering a single alarm. Well, the figure says, voice calm in a way that makes my skin crawl. That's inconvenient. Instructor Corinth is on her feet instantly, a spell already forming in her palm, bright and sharp. Identify yourself. This office is warded against unauthorized entry. I'm aware, the figure says, almost bored. I'm the one who wrote half those wards 7 years ago. My stomach drops. You're the one who sealed me, I say. And it's not really a question. The hood tilts slightly in my direction, and for just a second, I catch a glimpse of pale, familiar eyes underneath it. Eyes that remind me uncomfortably of a face I see every single time I look in a mirror. I sealed you to keep you alive, the figure says. Your mother made me promise, right before she died, that I would protect you from what you carry for as long as I possibly could. I kept that promise for 7 years, Rowan. Longer than I ever thought I'd be able to. Who are you? I demand, my voice shaking now, half fear, half something closer to rage. Someone who's run out of time to explain it properly, the figure says, and there's real regret in that voice, buried under all the calm. The seal breaking wasn't an accident, and it wasn't just pressure building up naturally either. Someone found a way to force it open from the outside, which means the people your mother spent her entire life running from finally found you. The candles in the room reignite all at once, flaring bright for a single second before the figure vanishes completely, cloak and all, like they were never standing there at all, leaving nothing behind except one final sentence hanging in the freezing air. Trust no one who already knew your mother's real name before today, especially not the ones closest to you. I stand frozen in that ruined office, staring at the space where a stranger who apparently knew everything about my entire life just disappeared, and I realize with a sick, sinking feeling that my 7 years of being invisible are officially over, and whatever's coming next is going to be so much worse than being laughed at in an evaluation hall. That was bad. It gets worse almost immediately. Word of what happened in the evaluation hall spreads through Virelia Academy faster than any spell could carry it. By the time I make it back to the dormitory wing, every single student in the corridor goes silent and steps aside like I'm carrying a plague. Some of them look terrified. A few look hungry, the kind of hungry that comes from people calculating exactly how useful an unmeasurable rank ally could be to their family's standing. Cassian is waiting outside my dorm room when I arrive, arms crossed, that golden confidence rebuilt back onto his face like nothing ever cracked it. Father wants to see you, he says, tonight, which is strange, considering he hasn't wanted to see you in about 4 years. Tell him I'm busy processing the fact that my entire life was a lie, I say, and I try to walk past him into my room. He steps directly into my path. You think this changes anything between us, he says quietly, and there's something underneath his voice now that wasn't there this morning. Not confidence, something closer to fear wearing confidence like a mask. You think one broken rock makes you better than me. I don't think anything yet, I say honestly. I don't even know what I am yet. Then let me help you figure it out, Cassian says, and before I can react, his hand ignites with golden light, a spell I recognize instantly, one of the Academy's standard combat evaluations, the kind used in sparring matches to test a student's real combat rank under pressure instead of relying on measuring stones. You want to know what you're capable of, he says. Fine. Let's find out the honest way, right now. I don't have time to argue before the spell launches straight at my chest. Everything after that happens too fast to process in order. There's a burst of black light, the same wrong, ink-dark color that came out of the shattered obelisk, and it happens without me consciously deciding to do anything at all. It's like my body reacted before my brain caught up, some instinct buried 7 years deep, suddenly remembering exactly what to do. Cassian's golden spell doesn't hit me. It simply stops, frozen a few inches from my chest, suspended in the air like time itself flinched. Then it reverses direction and slams straight back into him. He hits the corridor wall hard enough to crack the stone behind him, and for a long, silent moment, nobody in the hallway breathes. I stare at my own hands like they belong to someone else. I didn't cast a counterspell. I don't know a single combat spell. Nobody ever bothered teaching an unranked student anything beyond the basics. Whatever just happened wasn't technique. It was something closer to instinct. Like my body already knew how to defend itself against exactly that kind of attack. Like it had done this exact motion 1,000 times before in a life I don't remember living. Cassian slides down the wall, dazed, staring at me with wide eyes that have completely lost their golden confidence now. "What are you?" he breathes. I don't have an answer. Not yet. A few students in the corridor start whispering immediately. Phones and recording crystals already out, because of course they are. This is exactly the kind of moment people wait years to witness. The golden air knocked flat by the family embarrassment. And I can already feel the story warping in real time as it spreads mouth to mouth down the hallway. By tomorrow, it'll be a duel. By next week, it'll be a battle. That's fine. Let them talk. For 7 years, the only stories anyone told about me ended with the word unranked. And honestly, I'm not in a rush to correct whatever version they're inventing now. Cassian pushes himself up off the floor slowly, wiping a thin line of blood from his lip, and for a second, I brace for him to come at me again, angrier this time, the kind of angry that doesn't care about an audience. Instead, he just stands there, staring at me like he's seeing me for the first time in his entire life, which, honestly, he probably is. "This isn't over," he finally says, but the words come out hollow, more reflex than threat. "It never is with you," I say, and I mean it as an insult, but some small, uncomfortable part of me almost feels sorry for him. Cassian built his entire identity on being better than me. He didn't have a choice in that, not really, any more than I had a choice in being the family disappointment. We were both cast in roles before either of us was old enough to understand what a role even meant. And now the script just tore itself in half in front of a hallway full of witnesses. He doesn't say anything else. He just walks away, faster than his usual golden strut, and I watch him go, feeling something complicated settle in my chest that isn't quite victory and isn't quite guilt either. That night, I go see my father anyway, because whatever else is true, I need answers more than I need to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. Lord Edrin Ashgrave's private study feels exactly like I remember it from childhood, cold, orderly, lined with trophies from battles I've only ever heard secondhand stories about. He's standing by the window when I walk in, not facing me, and for a long moment neither of us says anything at all. "You broke the obelisk," he finally says. "You broke me first," I answer. 7 years ago. Want to explain that part?" His shoulders tense, just slightly, the only crack in a man who's supposed to be one of the strongest hunters alive. "I did what I thought was necessary to keep you alive," he says. "Your mother's bloodline attracts enemies most people can't even comprehend. Powerful ones. Old ones. I sealed you because I was terrified that if they found you before you were strong enough to protect yourself, they would kill you the same way they eventually found your mother." "Found her," I repeat slowly. "She died of illness. That's what everyone always told me." My father finally turns around, and for the first time in my entire life, I see something in his face that looks genuinely like grief. "She didn't die of illness, Rowan. She died protecting you, 3 days after making me swear I would seal your power and never let anyone learn what you carried until you were old enough to defend yourself. I have spent 7 years trying to keep that promise, watching you get humiliated, watching you get called worthless in your own home and saying absolutely nothing because the alternative was risking your life." My chest feels tight in a way that has nothing to do with anger anymore. "The seal broke today," I say quietly. "Someone forced it open from the outside. A hooded figure showed up in Instructor Corinth's office and told me the people who killed my mother finally found me. My father's face goes pale in a way I've genuinely never seen before, not even in the most dangerous stories about his hunting career. "Describe them," he says urgently. "Exactly." I describe the cloak, the calm voice, the pale eyes I couldn't quite place. When I finish, my father sits down heavily in his chair, like his legs stopped working properly. "That's not an enemy," he says slowly. "That's someone who helped me build the seal in the first place. Someone I trusted completely." Which means either they're lying to you for a reason I don't understand yet, or someone else entirely is impersonating them to gain your trust. And if it's the second option, Rowan, we have a much bigger problem than a broken evaluation stone. I sit down across from him because my legs have decided they're done holding me up for tonight. "You keep saying trusted completely like it's supposed to mean something to me," I say. "I don't know this person. I don't know you. Not really. Not the version of you that apparently spent 7 years making life or death decisions about me without ever once sitting me down and explaining why. So forgive me if trust isn't exactly the word I'm reaching for right now." Something flickers across my father's face, and for one strange, uncomfortable second, he looks less like the strongest hunter in the kingdom, and more like a man who's been carrying something heavy for so long he forgot how to put it down. "You're right to feel that way," he says quietly. "I told myself every year that I'd explain it to you when you were older. Old enough to understand. And every year I found a new reason to wait, because the truth is, Rowan, I was scared that the moment you knew what you carried, you'd resent me for hiding it. Or worse, you'd try to use it before you were ready and get yourself killed the same way I lost your mother. I told myself I was protecting you. Looking at you right now, I think I was mostly protecting myself from having this exact conversation. That's the first honest thing he's said to me in years, and somehow it makes me angrier instead of better because it means he knew. The whole time he knew exactly what this moment would feel like, and he let it happen anyway, 7 years too late. For a moment, the study is quiet except for the low crackle of the fireplace, and I let myself actually look at him. Really look, the way I haven't in years. There are lines on his face I don't remember being there before. A tiredness that goes deeper than just missing sleep. 7 years of watching his son get treated like garbage in his own home and saying nothing, apparently because saying anything meant admitting a truth big enough to put a target on both our backs. It doesn't excuse it. I'm not ready to say it excuses it. But it makes the shape of the last 7 years look different than it did an hour ago. And right now, different is the only thing keeping me from walking straight back out that door. What happens now? I ask, because someone has to say it out loud. The seal's broken. The Silverthorn family apparently already knows. Whoever that figure was is out there somewhere with answers I still don't have. What's the plan exactly for keeping me alive past this week? My father opens his mouth to answer, and that's exactly when the study door opens without a knock, and Instructor Corinth steps inside, breathing hard like she ran the entire way here. "Edrin," she says urgently, ignoring me completely for a second. The Silverthorn envoy just arrived at the front gate, unannounced, demanding to see the boy who broke the obelisk immediately. My father goes rigid. The Silverthorn family hasn't sent an envoy to this academy in over a decade. They have now, Corinth says, and Edrin, they're not asking politely. They came with an armed escort and a formal claim of ancestral bloodline rights over anyone descended from the old bloodline. I look between the two of them, completely lost. Somebody explain that last part to someone who's had exactly 1 day to learn any of this. My father's jaw tightens, and when he finally looks at me, there's something in his eyes that looks almost like an apology. The Silverthorn family, he says slowly, is the house that originally hunted your mother's bloodline to near extinction 2 generations ago. If they're here claiming rights over you, it means they've known exactly what you are for a lot longer than today, Rowan. And it means they're not here to ask for permission. They're here to collect what they believe already belongs to them. Then the real problem started. I don't get a say in whether I want to meet the Silverthorn envoy. My father makes the decision for me, sweeping out of the study with instructions for Corinth to keep me hidden in the Academy's warded East Tower while he handles the situation personally. For about 4 hours, that plan almost works. Then the wards on the East Tower fail all at once, every single one of them, like something simply reached out and turned them off. I'm in the middle of trying to process everything Instructor Corinth just told me about the old bloodline, about ancient hunters who could apparently rewrite the rules of combat magic itself. When the temperature in the room drops so fast, frost forms across the windows in seconds. The door doesn't open. It simply isn't there anymore, replaced by a swirling black portal that definitely isn't standard Academy architecture. A young woman steps through it, dressed in silver-trimmed formal robes that scream old money nobility, flanked by 2 armed escorts who look like they've killed things significantly scarier than a curious teenage boy. "Rowan Ashgrave," she says, and her voice has the kind of practiced pleasantness that immediately makes me distrust every word coming out of it. "My name is Adelia Silverthorn. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. Diplomatic channels tend to move slower than I have patience for." I study her for a second, the way you'd study a locked door you're not sure you want to open. Silver-trimmed robes, perfect posture, a smile that's clearly been practiced in front of a mirror more times than I've had actual conversations with my own father. Everything about her is designed to look reasonable, harmless, generous even. None of it reaches her eyes. "You broke into a warded Academy tower," I say. "That's not really an apology." Her smile doesn't waver. "No, it isn't. Let's skip ahead to the part that matters. My family has documentation, going back generations, proving that the old bloodline your mother carried was originally cultivated by House Silverthorn before it was stolen from us in a betrayal that cost us dozens of lives. Legally, morally, and magically, that bloodline belongs to my family, which means, technically, you belong to my family." "I'm not a bloodline," I say. "I'm a person." "Of course you are," she says, in a tone that suggests she genuinely doesn't believe it matters either way. "And I'd much rather resolve this as a person-to-person conversation than a legal dispute. Come with me willingly. Train under proper Silverthorn instruction where your power can finally be understood and controlled correctly. And I promise you a life of resources, protection, and status that this academy could never give someone like you." Something about the way she says "someone like you" scrapes against every 7-year-old wound I've been carrying since childhood. "And if I say no?" I ask. Adelia's smile finally cracks, just slightly, revealing something colder underneath. Then we proceed with the legal claim, which involves significantly less choice on your part and considerably more force. I'd genuinely prefer the first option, Rowan. I don't enjoy hurting people I might eventually respect. "You don't even know me," I say. "How can you respect someone you decided to own before you ever said hello?" For just a flicker of a second, something almost human crosses her face, gone before I can be sure I actually saw it. "I know your bloodline," she says. "I know what it did the last time it was left uncontrolled 2 generations ago, and I know what it cost my family to contain it then. Respect and history aren't the same thing, Rowan, but sometimes history is the only thing keeping people like me polite instead of desperate. Don't mistake my patience for softness. That's the moment I understand, really understand, that this isn't a woman being cruel for the sake of cruelty. Whatever happened between our families 2 generations ago left a wound deep enough that she's willing to threaten a teenager she just met in order to keep it from happening again. That doesn't make her right. It just makes her dangerous in a way that's harder to predict than simple villainy would be." Before I can answer, the tower door blasts open behind her, this time the actual door, and Rensselaer steps through it with her weapon already drawn, standing between me and the Silverthorn envoy, like she made that decision before she even finished walking through the doorway. "House Silverthorn has no jurisdiction inside Varelia Academy grounds," Ren says, voice flat and completely unbothered by the fact that she's facing down 2 armed escorts alone. Withdraw now, or I escalate this to a formal academy security violation. And trust me, my family's seat on the Oversight Council will make that extremely inconvenient for yours. For a long, tense moment, nobody moves. Then Adelia laughs, soft and unbothered, like this whole confrontation is mildly entertaining rather than actually threatening. "Solari," she says, looking Ren up and down with new interest. "Interesting. I wasn't aware the Solari heir made a habit of defending unmeasurable strangers." "I make a habit of doing what's right," Ren says. "Leave." Adelia holds my gaze for one more long second, something calculating happening behind her polite expression. "This isn't over, Rowan," she says. "My family has waited 2 generations to reclaim what's ours. A few more weeks won't change the outcome. Think carefully about my offer." The portal reopens behind her, and she steps through it with her escorts, leaving the tower suddenly, eerily quiet. I turn to Ren, still processing the fact that the Academy's top-ranked student, the same girl who's spoken exactly 4 dismissive words to me in 3 years, just physically stood between me and an armed noble envoy without a second of hesitation. "Why did you help me?" I ask. Ren sheaths her weapon, and for the first time since I've known her, there's something almost uncertain in her expression. "Because I recognized that black light," she says quietly. "The same light that broke the obelisk. The same light I saw 7 years ago, the night my older sister disappeared during a mission investigating something called the old bloodline." My stomach drops. "Your sister was investigating my mother's bloodline." "My sister was investigating a bloodline everyone told her was extinct," Ren says. "And then she vanished chasing rumors about a woman named Lyra, who was supposedly still alive, still hiding, still protecting a child nobody was supposed to know existed." The room feels very small and very cold all at once. "You think my mother is connected to your sister's disappearance," I say slowly. "I think," Ren says, "that whatever you're carrying, Rowan, is bigger than either of us understood an hour ago. And I think we don't have the luxury of figuring it out separately anymore." I want to argue with her. Some stubborn, exhausted part of me wants to say I've survived 7 years of being alone. Just fine, thank you, and I don't need a top-ranked stranger deciding we're a team now just because our tragedies happen to overlap, but I don't say any of that because it isn't true, and we both know it isn't true. I have exactly one ally in this entire academy who isn't bound by blood or duty to protect me, and she's standing in front of me covered in the aftershock of a confrontation she didn't have to walk into at all. "Why didn't you ever talk to me?" I ask instead, quieter than I mean to. 3 years. We've had classes together for 3 years, Ren, and the only thing you ever said to me was move, you're in the way. Something almost like guilt passes over her face. "Because for 3 years, I thought you were exactly what everyone said you were," she admits. "Unranked, irrelevant. I was wrong, and I'm sorry it took an emergency for me to bother finding that out. It's not a big apology. It's not even a particularly warm one. But it's honest. And after a day built entirely out of secrets, honest is worth more to me right now than anything else she could have said. That should have been the end of my worst day. It wasn't. Because that's when the system spoke for the very first time. A translucent panel of text materializes directly in front of my eyes, visible to nobody but me, glowing faintly in that same wrong black light that's apparently attached to everything about my power now. Bloodline. Suppression. Fully released. Origin class. Old bloodline. Voidborn lineage. Current stability. 12%. Warning. Unstable awakening detected. Catastrophic power. Surge possible within 72 hours without proper containment. Recommended action. Locate a Voidborn anchor before stability reaches 0. I read it twice, then a third time, feeling the blood drain out of my face. "What's wrong?" Ren asks, watching my expression change. Apparently, I say slowly, breaking a 300-year-old obelisk wasn't the dangerous part of today. I show her the panel, and her face goes just as pale as mine. 72 hours, she reads aloud. Rowan, if this stability meter hits 0 before you find whatever a voidborn anchor even is, what happens? I don't need the system to answer that question. I can feel it already, somewhere deep in my chest, a pressure building behind the black light that woke up in me today. Patient and enormous and completely unfamiliar, like something ancient just opened one eye for the first time in generations and is slowly, carefully, starting to look around. Whatever my mother spent her whole life protecting me from finally arrived, and I have exactly 72 hours to figure out how to survive being it. I look down at the iron pendant around my neck, the only piece of her I have left, and for the first time since she died, I think I finally understand what she was trying to tell me with her last 4 words. She wasn't asking me to hide forever. She was asking me to survive long enough to stop hiding on my own terms when I was ready, when I had people standing next to me instead of a childhood spent standing completely alone. Looking at Ren, still tense and alert beside me, weapon within reach even now, I think maybe, for the first time in 7 years, I'm not actually standing alone anymore. That thought should feel comforting. Instead, it just makes the stakes feel heavier, because now there's someone else whose safety depends on whatever I do with the next 72 hours, and I have absolutely no idea if I'm strong enough, or ready enough, or even sane enough to carry that. He thought sealing me away would keep me safe forever. He had no idea the seal was the only thing keeping the entire kingdom safe from what happens when it finally breaks completely. And somewhere out there, right now, the people who killed my mother are already moving, and this time, there's nothing left standing between them and me except a stability counter that's already ticking down, and a girl I barely know who just decided, for reasons I still don't fully understand, that my survival is worth risking her own family's name to protect. 72 hours. This was only the beginning.